Hello, War of the Visions fans. I'm Jackie Fox, and today we're going to be talking about, I think they're calling this guy Heavenly Gilgamesh over there on JP, so Heavenly Gilgamesh. And as you can see, we have some pretty hellish problems here. First of all, the data cutoff is 519, so the last week of data for JP just doesn't exist, either because JP's guild battle was glitched, or because of limited, or some combination of those two things. So I only have the first week's data for Gilgamesh, and really there's only 3 days that are basically valid for analysis in any way, shape, or form. The numbers here are going to be a lot closer to what I was seeing for Tifa or Kadaj a couple weeks on, except that I'm having to work with the first week of that data instead of the second. So I went for the 3 most recent days, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, and as you can see, they're actually, as of the end of that week, there's only 18 people that are using him in top ranks. Only 1 using him on defense. Wait, really? Wow. So there's just not a huge adoption here, and this is because he isn't a collaboration unit. He isn't like a super popular I mean, he is, like within War of the Vision specifically, but as a limited pool unit also, a lot of people don't feel the rush to pick him up because they figure they're going to get him eventually, probably into the future someday. So for people who this isn't a major priority, they really haven't pulled for him. But maybe you should think differently about it, because there are some incredibly powerful potential here. I saw some of the wildest numbers in this data, like genuinely of anything. Like, I thought Kadaj as a niche unit could really spike the numbers, but good god, Gilgamesh is insane. Basics of Gilgamesh team design, though, I noticed a very strong pattern. First, Summer Glaciella or Eldoa, you need a physical aura. I didn't see anybody testing him with Roth, though, and I think either of those 2 units that I mentioned before that have at least 1 synergy with Gilgamesh. Eldoa is an ice unit. She will work best on ice teams typically, so ice synergies for Gilgamesh, great there. But the thing that people maybe aren't thinking about is that Summer Glaciella is one of the most impactful red mage units in the game, and one of the most well suited, especially to like the synergy between red mage and Katana and like the meta right now. So I'd say this synergy is potentially really strong too, and it gives you a much broader base to build from. If you saw I think it was my original job ranking system, where I actually went through all the VCs and explained the synergies and really went into detail about why I think, based mostly on their VC base, each of the jobs lands where it did on that list. Really informative if you're curious about the vision card bases and like what these different ones can do and who can partner with who, because one of the things that I pointed out is that there are, I think, 7, if not more now, vision cards that work for both Katana and Red Mage. You could build any 3 of those 2 unit types on a team and have full next level vision card support very easily. You could even fill in the gaps between a unit like Gilgamesh and Summer Glaciella or Howlet, or just any of these water and ice units with any of the number of vision cards that support that. For Howlet, maybe he's going to want Ice Shiva. Well, I mean, actually, Gilgamesh is going to want Ice Shiva too. Both of them are going to want Ice Shiva, but also Ice Shiva. What the fuck am I saying? Dark Shiva. Need more energy drinks for this. Because I just did all of the data analysis right before jumping into the recordings. It's all so fresh. Also, Chaos Odin would be pretty good for this team, and gluing it together and gluing water and ice together. So you have an intersection of 2 really strong synergies, and Kadaj fits in here really well as well. I just didn't really see him in the data. But again, Kadaj would have, there would be 2 directions which you could build a team between Kadaj and Gilgamesh, because because this is one of like 3 job combinations, I think, job VC combinations. Red Mage has 2 of them specifically, the other one's with Glove. But Red Mage and Katana, and there's another one that I forget, all of them could field a team just based on their combined vision cards, the ones that feature both of those jobs. So they're almost like their own job, you know what I mean? So with that being said, one of the strongest teams here, and one that has kind of become a meme in the last week, really. I've seen like 2 videos about it, and it's the one that I had theorized would be the best. It's a shame that I didn't point out the strong synergy here, but Summer Glaciella, Gilgamesh, and One Wing Sephiroth. It basically does everything, and as long as you can get 2 out of 3 of these points, fine. If you can't get One Wing Sephiroth, then Joom or Ashenmont will kind of work in a pinch, and there are more chaos synergies with those 2, so you don't have to rely on Katana, Red Mage vision cards specifically for that. You can go kind of a different direction if you go with one of those characters. We'll see those combinations here. But really just the huge, powerful DPS that can screw with the other team. The physical resistance aura unit, which is why I theorize Raph could work in here. She just has the least synergy of the 3 that can do this, and she's also the oldest, so probably the weakest. But still probably a pretty good unit in this theory. And then Gilgamesh to just glue it all together. That's really what he seems to do best with. So let's look more at the data. And you'll notice some highlighted sections that I've done a little bit differently, and you'll also notice that my data validation kind of fell apart over here on the side. So, these columns should be alternating colors, but these 2 actually got numbers so high that my spreadsheet thinks that they're offensive numbers, and these defends are insane. The average defense for this team, and look, there weren't a lot of people running this team, right? The average defense for this team is over fucking 4. It's over 4.5. It's 4 and 2/3. It's easier saying fractions. Less cursed. So maybe I can just make fucking. Does this column need to be this big? Okay. So looking at the most used units, we have Glaciella and Joom. This is the water team, and again, this kind of fits the profile that I was talking about. You've got your strong DPS, you've got your synergistic, maximally synergistic, or although it does well too, but like really synergistic on a job basis. Red Mage here. Now, Red Mage doesn't stretch into either Knight or Greatsword in the same way, so you're not really going to be building this as a job VC team, and I think that's what holds it back the most. But a lot of people wanted to flex this way, and it is easy with Chaos VCs to flex this way, so it's a good team. Oldoa and A2, similar strategy, just slightly older Greatsword unit, slightly newer aura tank. A full ice synergy here. A lot of people are just playing this as an ice unit, and that makes sense. That's what you should see most people doing, typically. It's the path of least resistance, especially for a lot of legacy players. A2 and Joom. Again, Red Mage doesn't really have a synergy with Greatsword, so I think that this is actually one of the most overrated teams, or overused teams. For sure. This is just not as good. But I also don't think the Glaciella Joom is quite as good as it could be either. 4th most used, and we're kind of falling off here, but Oldoa and Mont, so Ashen Synergy plus Gilgamesh is definitely going to be a thing. And then Mont and Sephiroth with Gilgamesh is just... I don't know, man. That sounds like absolute chaos in good and bad ways. But we're going to be testing those teams today, and from our testing, just a little overview of the results. You're going to notice that the Oldoa Sephiroth team is number 1 in offense with an asterisk. It averaged 8.75 stars, but I couldn't find data for it on the 17th. There was literally no one using it. On the 18th, there was literally only one person using it, and that one person somehow managed to get 11 stars. But there were multiple people using it by 519, people were catching on to this team, and I got 6.5 stars and 4 defends on 519, so this was actually a good enough performance to land at 3rd on defense as well. Even only based on 2 days of data, one of those days literally just being one dude who had the most different outcomes you could almost possibly get in terms of guild, and I'm frankly not even sure how you get 11, but I've seen people average above 6, so I gotta assume it's something with the reserve system, but I thought that would cap at 9. So maybe it caps at 12, maybe there's something else going on behind the scenes which is screwing up the data in general, and if that's the case, wotv stats, I think you need to figure out, you may have some data validation issues, but I don't know, this could be a JP thing as well. Second place on offense is Mont and Sephiroth. So I told you this was absolute chaos, but it fucking works. It's just, I think it's just a ton of offensive pressure. It's more offensive pressure than people can take, and I think the unit that's really selling it is Sephiroth. Also, speaking of Sephiroth, Glaciella and Sephiroth. So this is going to be very much likely, I think the optimal version of this team is your red mage and Katana synergy, because we are talking about 3 different elements of units. Even though there are some ways to glue water and ice together, that neither has any synergy with fire. So you're really going to want to go the Katana red mage route for this team. Glaciella and Joom, this is the water team, the water and Gilgamesh team at least. So, but also kind of a red mage team. There's various synergies here. But again, not the best. It did manage to come in 4th on offense, so it is doing pretty good. I'm not going to hate on it too much. And it also ranks on defense, so I guess this is a pretty decent team all around. And then coming in 5th is Oldoa and A2, so this is the all ice team that came in 2nd on most used. It's not bad. Especially on offense where you can kind of pick your teams, you can maybe run this more into wind or things that it's more advantageous into, and that keeps it a little bit safer. For defense, we're going to see some very different stuff. This team is even weirder. Howlet and Summer Glaciella. The thing that's weirder is that it actually, as you can see from its data, is outside of the bad data pool for 2nd and 3rd place overall, in that I found enough people, I mean like 2, more than 1 specifically, which honestly a lot of these teams were averaging like 6 to 8, so it doesn't feel that bad, especially when it's remarkably consistent between days. This does really good on defense and really poorly on offense. No idea why there's such a big gulf there, to be quite honest with you. It's an all red mage team, so I still don't understand why it's so bad on offense. But wow, this thing houses people on defense like no team I have ever seen before. Again, take that with a grain of salt, because I think the top 3 here especially were all super outliers and all pretty niche, but again, not nearly as niche as what happens when we get into 2nd and 3rd place overall. For 2nd place in defense, we have Glaciella and Sephiroth, then we have Oldoa and Sephiroth, although this again wasn't used by many people and is kind of an outlier, but Glaciella and Sephiroth managed to average 3.1 defense over the 3 days that I saw them, so that's pretty special. Glaciella and Joom, again, the water team here in 4th place, so they were consistently 4th on offense and defense. In terms of this being the most used team, I do think it's a little bit overused, because there are some things I would like to suggest from this that just aren't being used at all, at least in this week. Hopefully JP players are catching on to how good these are in Arena or other places if they aren't playing them in Guild Battle. And again, since I've seen kind of a meme video about one of these, whoa, okay. You know, people are catching on to at least one of them, but there are some other considerations from here. And then finally, in 5th place, A2 and Tifa is working well on defense. Which is kind of odd. You would think a team like Uldoa and A2 would do a little bit better on defense, but averaging higher was actually A2 and Tifa, and this is in fact a tie between this and the previous June team as well. So both of those teams did equally well in defense from the incredibly limited data pool that I'm working with here. Looking at the team that weighted score came in first place. It came in first place by a mile. Weighted score of like 41, just beating other people by at least 5 points, was Howlett and Summer Glaciella. So this is going to be both an Ice Water synergy team, but also a Red Mage synergy team. So that's two really cool pools of cards to pull from. I would say you probably get a lot of power from using Chaos Vision cards here. So definitely Chaos Siren being one of the most important ones, but also I think that Chaos Odin could be pretty cool here, maybe as a sub card on Glaciella, I don't know. But probably more Red Mage cards than anything, which is going to give you, I think the Red Mage cards specifically have a lot more options for defense than they do for offense. Maybe this makes sense, maybe this helps them sustain well or something, which helps them in this data on defense in a way that they just don't have on you know, they just stick around too long to get many stars or something, because they did have a pretty poor offense and like a consistently poor offensive record. In the absolute other direction, we have Strategist Uldoa and One Wing Sephiroth, which, again, this is one of the highest numbers I've ever seen, but only one person did it, so it's also one of the sketchiest data pools I've ever pulled a team from. Like, there was consideration of cutting all three of these top teams in these numbers because they really feel like they need more testing. But again, Summer Glaciella, One Wing Sephiroth, which came in second on defense and third on offense, this is a very consistently powerful team across formats. There were 2 days in this data that I can trace back to only one person playing it in the top 200, because I had to, well, as much as it maybe makes less sense to do so, I limited the data pool here, especially because using early data, I wanted to filter out all the people in lower rank who might feel like they were more comfortable running this guy at 115 or something. I want to know how he's doing on 140 teams that are actually competitive. So at least for early release and stuff like this, I like to filter out those first few. It's not something I've done in a video previously, but I really thought that this data needed all the quality help it could possibly get. So there could have been more than one person playing these on both of those days, and people are definitely catching on, but it almost looks like someone invented this. Someone else noticed, it became a meme, and here we are. Definitely a team to be watching out for, because I think this is getting tested a lot more than the other two teams that I've mentioned. The data looks a little bit more solid for it. It's not missing a day, and it's actually doing good on offense and defense as well. So I would see maybe this is the big winner from this data. But coming in fourth, and also a pretty good team here, is Ashen Mont, One Wing Sephiroth, and Gilgamesh. And I mean, I guess there's like Katana and Red Mage synergies, but none of these share elements. This has got to be like the One Wing and a Dream team. That's okay. TM. Let me trademark that right now. One Wing and a Dream. But it's really just about overpowering people, and that's why it does so especially well on offense, averaging actually over 6 stars on offense. And that was the 3rd place finish for this data set. That's the crazy part. Even I'm being outpaced. I mean, again, this is probably the reserve system, but like, you know, we're all trying to get 6 stars here in global. This is the 3rd place here on offense is getting 6.1 on average. What is going on with this data? In 5th place is June the Spring Celestial and Summer Glaciella. And none of these actually are going to rank either on offense or defense. Like, it was mostly clustered into that. Again, I think you'd really change the data if you remove the top 3 teams, but I also think that they have, at least in certain formats, a lot of potential. The top 2 might be way more inclined for either offense or defense, but hey, that's perfectly valid. So I'm just going to read out the next teams as they rank. A2 and Tifa from Advent Children, A2 and Strategist Oldoa, so both Ice Synergy teams doing pretty well. Strategist Oldoa and Joom, not bad, kind of an ice water strategy here, but I think Joom is kind of on the outer edge of what she works really well with. I think on the outer edge of what he works really well with. And because of that, I think we'll see her fall off as he gets better options. Either, I don't know, even Earth could be a better synergy often for Ice than Water. So either that or more Red Mages, more Katanas maybe. Or more people start using Kadaj with him, because I still think that would be a really strong combo that I didn't really see anybody testing. In 9th place, we have Strategist Oldoa and Ashen Mont, so we have our Ashen team here. It did alright. And then we have A2 and Joom the Spring Celestial. So as I was saying, while there is kind of a chaos synergy here, and this is the meme teams of last month, the meme teams through Advent Children were silly because they didn't have really any synergy with them. It was just gluing the best stuff together. This is an upgrade from that, but it still feels like, in a lot of ways, trying to plug and play something that doesn't have as good of a synergy as everything doing better than it. I mean, I'm almost surprised to see a Red Mage team or 2 like spiking the data here, but I'm glad to see it because I've rated them highly. They have an amazing VC pool and amazing flexibility with working with other teams. Again, if you have the right specific cards, you can easily play them interchangeably with Glove or Katana units. Katana being really strong right now is helpful for that. If Glove ever had a power spike, then that could also be really beneficial for them as well. So, with all of that being said, let's just take a moment to clear our minds by checking out how cool this guy's art is. You can see he's like fused with Omniless's garb, and you can see her light reflecting through his icy blades. It's a really beautiful effect. I love the like hints of gold throughout him that almost looks like green in certain, because it's kind of shining through blue. He looks dope. He looks dope. Glad he took the mask off too. Good to see your face, my dude. It definitely helps to humanize you. So from our Master ability and Dream ability, we're getting crit rate 10, reaction block rate 40. That's that's a really good start on just ignoring counters. Debuff effect weakening 15. That's really helpful with so many strong debuffers out here, especially with Shred being a thing. It's gonna so I think that really helps him a lot on defense, like helps him defend himself for sure. And then AoE resistance of 15, also really good defensive passive here, although with his vision card we are first getting a way of getting through AoE resistance, so we'll see. And then 20 critical damage up, so he's gonna hit. He is gonna slap. I've been better familiarizing myself with like this era's base stats, so I can make sense of this stuff. 7600 HP is pretty good, but not really pushed necessarily. 849 magic though, that's kind of in line with like where Tifa is. Tifa has one of the higher attacks, but is kind of more vanilla than other units. That's why she's not as good. It's not because she doesn't slap really fucking hard, because she does. But really, there are more important things in this game than having a high offensive stat. That being said, he's up there. I think he's a little bit lower than Tifa. Pretty good. 69 agility is nice. not necessarily top tier, but only missing it by 1 or 2 agility. 358 dexterity is good, borderline high, maybe 20 or 30 above what I would expect. Luck of 298 is about where I would expect it. 6 evade, 16 accuracy, 20 crit rate, all seems fair. Yeah, that's kind of what I would expect. So he's not necessarily going to be a glass cannon, I would say, off of these stats. He seems like he has a good AP pool as well. Let's see. He has problems with being punched. That's his weakness, 15%. But he's got missile and pierce resistance of 10% slash resistance of 20%. So he's completely... Oh, nope. He's not neutral to magic. He has 10% resistance to magic as well. And then also negative 10 to fire, of course. 20 to wind, of course. Resist sleep, so he's going to be good into units like Grifford. Maybe that's kind of an odd choice here. The more iconic would definitely be Helena, but with Grifford being a unit that you can so easily get with as a new player now, and ice being a thing, that could be relevant as well. There are other sleep units, but those are the ones that are really doing it in an AoE right now. Confusion is also helpful against various things. He is a mage, so having a higher faith, he's going to be more susceptible to statuses. Confusion can really mess with you, but it's not really the worst. 10% to disable, and I really wish that was a lot higher. That one's a pretty useful one, although it is used kind of sparingly. It's never been super it's backbreaking if you get hit by it, but it's never really been pushed super hard, so it's never been the biggest problem. But yeah, I would rather have that than confusion, probably, even though confusion is way more likely to happen, but somebody's going to hit me and that's going to solve the problem. Single target resistance of 15, slash resistance penetration of 40, magic 24, and the inability to be CT downed. You cannot steal time from this man. He is the master of time. Don't even fucking try. Pretty cool. It's not quite a DPS. It's kind of a DPS, except instead of getting spirit penetration, he's getting instead a defensive stat here, single target resistance. I'm not mad at that. I think he can make up for that in his kit. And look, I have trauma from how glass cannon-y the original Gilgamesh was, so I'm okay with this. And then his other main passive is float and jump. That's cool flavor. Let's use something else. 24% magic, AP consumption down 25%. That could be cool, especially as a red mage. He's gonna have like a mid AP start, so compared to other mages, he's gonna have some issues. But also compared to other physical units, a lot of other sword units, he's gonna have a lot more AP. So this could help like stabilize that, make that make sense. You could also go with Spirit and HP, or HP and Wind Resistance. I could see either of those kind of working in certain scenarios. But also, holy crap, this last passive is really good. What? Is this from Blade Soul? Wow, how did I not know this existed? 12% agility is great. Here's the Spirit Penetration 40 we were looking for. Found it. We're good. We got that now. But also with agility, that's nuts. And critical rate 12 is just icing on the cake. This is everything I wanted and more. I would say this combination of for giving him this, I'm almost really glad that they gave him such a very passable second. Because this isn't even a hard choice. These are your passives. Preemptive counter with absorb 50% damage done, pretty good range. Reduce missile damage. 100% chance, all missile damage reduced by 30% all the time. Okay. I don't think it's super relevant, but maybe someday it will be. Maybe there'll be a meta in which this is going to be a serious problem for him. Chance to counter all damage 30% with damage. close range, but preemptive. And increases damage as HP decreases based on base HP. Or based on 100% HP. So lower. So it's kind of like a revenge type skill. Okay. Got you. For a main ability, 121 mod, that's normal. When enemy is killed, CT up for self, looks like. Decent range, 14 AP, kind of what you'd expect. Courage on his single target buff, reduce physical damage taken 25% while he has courage. Or not. I don't always trust this conditional on wotv calc. Sometimes it's truly works that way, sometimes it doesn't. Grant following effects upon hit for self. Ignore someone trying to dispel courage. So he can make his courage undispellable. This is oh, sorry, that's grant upon hit. Whoops. So this is just courage ceiling, and again, it's only for himself. This isn't, I don't like this strategy. I've said it every time I've encountered it. The only way that it comes close to working is if this is on a buddy buff and your whole team is turning off courage. But even then, you're still liable to get wombo comboed and get hit by them before they do that. But that's not all this skill is doing, right? So maybe it's not bad. When friendly unit in range automatically casts another skill. Something for self. Target has, let's see, so this might be like an aura type thing. Is it this one? Is this like a follow-up hit? I guess it's a follow-up hit. That's an HP absorbing follow-up hit. If so, that's pretty cool. Also does the courage ceiling thing, I guess. So that could be cool. Like if you could do that on a follow-up hit, that would make it a lot more effective. He has a, okay, way to break magic barriers. Physical damage reduction barrier. This is going to stack in with that physical damage reduction barrier. This is a HP barrier, where the other one is just a percentage reduction, so those two stack with each other. More AoE resistance, already has some. This also works for allies. And then area attack size resistance, 25% for 4 turns for allies. This is, I think Ashenmont and Helena can give this effect in a buff like this. So this is a very powerful buff. This is in line with a lot of newer units. Very, very good. I also really like the HP barriers. They can be quite nice as well. AoE Shred on a Diamond AoE. This gets upgraded twice. It will dispel shell and reduce magic damage taken, increase buff. Increase. Look. This feels like a double negative. What? Reduce magic damage taken, increase buff.
Most of the most impactful auras have been reduce magic damage or reduce physical damage, amongst many other things, and there have not been any characters in the game who've gotten a remove reduce magic damage or a remove reduce physical damage in the game. That dispel has not existed, so we've never really connected the dots on how this worked. Now, the new Gilgamesh in JP is the first unit to be able to do that, and this is poorly translated from wotv calc, but what this does is, on this diamond, it removes any reduction of magic damage. And so how would this work? Your unit would stand next to Dario in his aura with the reduced magic damage of 40%. Gilgamesh would attack your unit. Because this ability dispels magic damage percent down, it will dispel it on the attack, because it's looking at your unit as if it has a buff applied to that unit, and it will remove the buff on this attack the buff from the aura will reapply itself after the hit because the aura itself is still there and nothing is permanently dispelled in the aura. Now that is not the case for someone like Joom, who does have an actual buff that's reduced magic damage 25%. If Gilgamesh used this skill on Joom, it would permanently dispel it like any other dispel buff interaction in the game. And I have a video here that does demonstrate it, and JB did a similar video with Helena the Black Rose. This is consistent across all of the auras. What we're going to do for a test here is we're going to show that, number one, buffs and auras do not stack. We're going to show that. Number two, we're going to show that Joom on her Dispel can dispel the aura. And three, we're going to see how Dispel Seal that Volk has also confirms what's happening because he can seal Joom's ability to dispel the aura. I know it sounds confusing, but it's going to make sense soon.
So to sum up a few additional points in this video, Dispel Sealing can save auras in addition to other things, of course, because auras being counted as buffs means that they won't overlap with a like buff. So I think one of the issues that maybe some of this video had was not separating out. I don't think that a regular Dispel actually interacts with the aura effect for reducing damage types. Because this is a new effect on Gilgamesh, I don't think this was part of the Dispel package. The example in this video is of Volke, who gives a unit resist buff, aura effect. And this is within the things that a normal Dispel can remove. So I think that maybe, unless I misinterpreted him, because he's one of the better data analysts that covers War of the Visions, but unless I misunderstood him, it seems that he was implicating that Dispel also does this for the magic and physical damage reductions. But it does also tell us that these don't stack. So if you already have an innate magic or physical damage reduction, an aura is not going to stack with that. It may overlap it, but it won't stack with it. But also that those things, but also that a lot of different aura types that are more general, there are some specific examples of buffs that can't be taken by Dispel, I think. Now, I could be wrong, and correct me in the comments if I am, but I think that Dispel probably deals with a lot of different types of auras, but maybe not the damage reduction ones, which is interesting. And also, it's worth pointing out that this is only for the hit, because the Dispel can't remove the aura. It's not even targeting the unit, it's generating it, but it negates the effect on the unit for that attack. So I'm still not entirely sure that some of the finer details have been hammered out as to how this works. But this does actually make Dispel pretty powerful, but it doesn't deal with the... I still would contend that we have not yet proven. I'm not sure that it's necessary, you know, it could go either way. But I don't think that it's been proven that general Dispel deals with this, or we probably would have noticed sooner. I think that this is breaking news because this is a new type of Dispel that might be in addition to kind of a regular Dispel package. And we might see it as in addition to a regular Dispel package in the future. But this is also really interesting for Gilgamesh. And as Ready Player Will said, poorly translated by wotv calc. So there's also a CT up effect here. This CT up effect, if I remember correctly from what I just read, goes up to 2. I think the other skill was single target, so that makes sense. This is the second one. Look, regardless of what that clause really does, it is icing on the cake on an incredibly penetrative, destructive 2-hit skill with, okay range. Diamond AoE is naturally a big range, but it does get away from the body, so that's not bad. 200% mod too. Like this is gonna claim bodies. 200 CT for each kill, so you could get up to 400 CT, and I would imagine it's not hard to get kills with this. This could also line up really insanely into Sephiroth's Limit Burst. Like if you land this first, they're dead and not coming back. You've sealed them out of life. And then with our final skill here, we have guaranteed hit AoE. It's a small AoE, but I'll take it. 200% mod, pretty good. Increases spirit penetration 40 for 3 turns for self, and has guaranteed hit. I think that 40 spirit penetration, especially coming in before damage, with the 40 it's already in his passives, if we have another 20, this could put him at 100% spirit penetration very easily. Now, he doesn't really have Spirit Shred, but we do have AoE resistant Shred here in the kit. So AoE resistances can be ripped away. Shell can be ripped away. Spirit can be ignored completely, as can Evasion, to a degree. Again, units that only have one guaranteed hit skill can run into problems. Sure hit Evasion does exist, even though it's not usually on the most competent units for Evasion. Just as a balancing mechanism, I would say. Really, the only thing that you might have to build him to have a bit of is slash attack resistance penetration, since his moves are very primarily slash, and remain so across his sub-jobs, although his limit burst is magic based, so that one's going to be one that he actually has no penetration for. However, it's also going to be an alternate damage type, so this could be a skill that just violates people's weakness. The resistance to slash is pretty incredibly common. I would say that this might be one of the best ways to wall him, in fact, just looking at his kit. But at the same time, this is going to pass right through that. Also, wow. Wow. That skill's also pretty cool. Yeah, we talked about the 100% hit chance. Yeah, let's talk about his LB. 200% magic damage up 20% before, for 3 turns. Not just before damage, but for 3 turns after. Before doing a 240 mod, which is freaking astronomical. This is the AoE pattern. It's a little bit weird, but if you think about this as being a diamond AoE with these 4 kind of corner pieces missing, it makes a lot more sense. So it's a slightly smaller diamond. It is 100% hit. It does have technically the same range as his diamond AoEs. It moves out 1 from the body. So I would say this is a little bit of extra insurance. This is essentially another cast of guaranteed hit. Very powerful cast of guaranteed hit. But also a damage steroid for himself. This is going to hit incredibly hard. And it's almost certainly going to hit because of that 100% hit chance. But all of that, plus the chance to inflict frostbite, 67%, which will lose people. It counters their AP regen for 1. It just means that doesn't happen. If they have AP regen, they get 0 instead. Instead, they also, for 3 turns, lose 10% of their AP each turn. It can be pretty busted. This is especially going to be really strong against Ashen Mont. He's really dependent on that kind of stuff. If you can get to him fast enough, I guess. But I think this actual damage type might be a really great way of going with that, because there tend to be a lot of units that, there's a lot of units that deal with magic well, and units that you might think about countering this particular guy effectively. You could think about Cloud and Joom especially being really good anti-magic units. But that being said, there's a lot of units that are very physical, very oriented for the physical meta, that have a wide open ass end that magic can violate. So there's a lot of units like, okay, very old, but iconic too, Engelbert. Amazing tank for his day, but absolutely gets humiliated by magic. So this could be interesting. This is essentially a way of getting around not having the slash attack resistance penetration. And in fact, this kind of reminds me of the things I was saying with my Gilgamesh, except it's really just a one-off attack, and it's only 1 cast, so it's the most limited thing in this kit. Everything else literally is slash, so also couldn't be further from the truth. But same concept on LB, very powerful LB. Sizable HP restore with a good range in his sub job, but also haste for self. Okay. A little greedy, but fair enough. Who doesn't like haste? Hate down, move 1, jump 1 for 4 turns. That'll definitely get him across the field, but I don't like this sub job. Let's go into, I think this is Sword Sorcerer. Grant Shell and Magic Resistance Self. Not sure that we want to go past his normal buffs, but if you were playing into Magic for some reason, I wouldn't recommend it, as he's already a little bit weak to it. But this would help even things out, potentially. Magic damage up 15% after dealing damage on here. This would only be increased by his LB, but it also would not like stack with his LB. So it could help him be more consistent because it has 5 casts, so it would give him a lot of chances of proccing that extra damage. But I don't know that he really needs it. It's a pretty good range, but also pretty weird range. AoE disable, kind of close range, but that could be cool, especially for a higher faith unit. %, mod, 2 hit. This might be helpful in like PvE chaining situations. This is also a 2-hitter though. Slash attack resistance penetration. Hey, we found it. Here it is. So you could run this sub job to get that slash attack resistance penetration base up to 80. And 80 is striking distance because there are so many different pieces of equipment that can get you the other 20% for these things. You know, a lot of swords offer 20% in one penetration or the other. Just find one of those swords, and with these skills, you will be able to get up to 100% penetration. So this guy can potentially penetrate just about everything he deals damage in, which is very Gilgameshy. I like this. Very strong. I really like Sword Sorcerer on him. But let's look at Blade Soul. So Blade Soul is going to give him another HP barrier. This time it's for magic damage taken. I think these stack. You can have both of these on at the same time. That could be really cool. But also increases slash attack resistance penetration by 40 for 3 turns. So, hey, remember how I was saying that his main kit had this gaping hole that was really missing a way to give him slash attack resistance penetration? I like this, and this would be good going into Magic, and arguably I might even like this better by compressing the 2 things that I liked about the previous sub-job into 1 buff. But also, it's a buff. It's hard to work another buff into his rotation, even if I am going up into Magic. This might be easier to get off, is what I'm saying. And it's a 2-hit skill, it's an AoE, and it has 3 casts. I'm not mad at it. I'm not sure that I actually want to work another buff into my rotation. So doing that offensively might be the better way to go. Attacking magic down, could be better. Full dispel, on critical at least, that could be okay. Yeah, this isn't a bad sub job. It's kind of the older version of this sub job. It does a lot of the same things here, as you can see. But at the same time, I really like that this does it while attacking. I think this skill really sells the sub job for me. So there it is. That is Gilgamesh. Holy crap, this guy is just going to be penetrating everything. You definitely don't want to be running his main sub job. I think getting him the extra slash attack resistance penetration is a big deal, especially since it's his upgraded passive. This is really the thing that they designed you, like, when you upgrade a passive, it better be good, right? It better be the hallmark, the cornerstone of their kit. So giving him 40 slash attack resistance penetration is just begging for another 40, and both of his sub-jobs accomplish that, but I would say that Sword Sorcerer just does it better offensively, although there might be an argument for going the other way defensively, but still you'd most likely, in that case, be running him without courage. You kind of have to turn off the single target buff, I would think. And that's what his is. I would also leave him with his AoE area attack buff. So that could be very helpful for him. And then... also talking about this, I don't really know how I feel about this first part, this effect. Like, again, it's still not a buddy buff. That's what I'm kind of waiting for with this type of damage resistance. I'm not sure how important it is, but it's new, it's interesting, it's on a TMR. Okay, cool. 8 defense and spirit, also having a magic stat on this. The stat line's alright. But I think one of the most interesting thing about it is it automatically granting negative 30 healing power for 4 turns. Unlike the Gauntlet of Sharp Steel, which only gives you 10 healing power down, but doesn't require you to use a buff, because again, especially with a lot of these newer characters, there isn't a buff you want to turn off, and there aren't situations often where you get 3 buff turns. So working something like this in comes at the detriment of their kit often. You want it to be worth it. 30 healing power might be. You really want to be hitting 50, 60, 70, the highest numbers you possibly can with this, against sustain. But this will do something. It is certainly going to be stronger than the Sharp Steel Gauntlet, but it also is going to require you a buff turn for setting it up. So trade-offs here. But it is an accessory, so it should be incredibly equipable. Also, there's a second cast on this for what it's worth, so maybe even good into guild battle. But yeah, that's Gilgamesh, and I'm actually surprised that I managed to get through all of that and come to some pretty deep insights about this guy, even though I've definitely been putting off looking into him for a while, because I wanted that data to build up. I wanted to see what teams he was on, and I wanted to be able to give something fresh to the community, but also to... I felt like it would be cool, it would be helpful for me to see what those teams he's on are like before looking at what he does, so that I know in practice what he does before seeing in theory. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, you know what I mean? But like, when you know what teams he works well on, that's a bit of a puzzle. You wonder why. And then you see this data and you're like, okay, I can see how this works with these things, this works with these things, this works with... But the biggest thing that I want to emphasize for this guy, if you haven't missed this, is the very strong Red Mage and Katana Vision card synergy. Again, there's more than 6 of these vision cards that exist that offer skills to both of these sub-jobs. It is a little bit limited. It's not necessarily like the 6 or 7 vision cards that you would necessarily want, but it does offer an incredible amount of power to units that can utilize it. And really, there hasn't been an amazing Red Mage unit. I mean, it's kind of weird that the best Red Mage unit is a tank. So this really updates their unit pool, and actually, Red Mage is almost certainly going up with this guy, because he just allows other Red Mages that haven't had that team, that max power Red Mage team. Because look, I've been trying to make this work for a long time with all sorts of light and dark units specifically. I don't have Summer Glaciella, so I don't even have that, but you know, I played with a lot of other Red Mages like that, and it just never really pulls together. I think a champion like this, though, as we see from some of the crazy data spikes, could change this paradigm. And maybe that's why so many people haven't anticipated it, because people haven't been used to thinking about Red Mage as being powerful and being in a powerful situation, because they haven't really been able to capitalize on it with a great unit to wear their vision cards. But now, with Gilgamesh, the Heavenly Red Mage, they have that. So expect to see more Red Mages in your future. And also, if you like and subscribe, you can expect to see more of my content in the future. There's even a link in the description where you can check out other channels and other things that I'm affiliated with, and like and subscribe there as well. Also, there's a comment section below all of that where you can leave your thoughts and tell me what kind of thing you'd like to see in the next video, because I try to pride myself in doing things a little bit differently than the other creators in the space to give you unique takes and unique ways of looking at the same things that other creators might be looking at, or looking at them in a different way. Like the whole preface to this video, looking at the team data. I've never really seen another creator do that, and I think it's interesting, and I think it's a really interesting facet of understanding what is good about a character and what makes them good. And I hope that it works really well for a first look video, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you have, like and subscribe. And once again, that link in the description will lead you not only to other places on the internet where I reside, but also to my books. I am a fiction writer, and if you like the Final Fantasy universe, things like that, or even if you like more gritty, realistic fiction set in a more modern, maybe like vaguely pre-cyberpunk kind of environment, then I have books for you. So check those out. That will be in the Linktree link in the description. And with all that being said, now that I've got my self-promotion out of the way at least, I'll see you in the next one.